Are you someone that A, cares about your academics, B, doesn't like carrying around your books, and C, don't really care if all of your friends refer to you as an iPad kid? If your answer to those questions was yes, then hi, I'm Caroline and I'm a sophomore mechanical engineering student. I got an iPad years ago and didn't really use it for much, and then going into this past fall semester, I decided I didn't want to spend money on new notebooks, so I just used the iPad that I already had to take notes. I used the free version of GoodNotes and a random pencil that I found on Amazon for like $15, and I used my 9th gen iPad. Here she is in all of her glory. She does have a case somewhere, I don't know where. After using my iPad for a full semester for almost all of my note-taking, I put together a list of some pros and cons, and then at the end I'll talk about what my plan is for this next semester. The first and most obvious pro is that you don't have to carry around as many notebooks. This was a lifesaver for me because my laptop is about 80 pounds. Other engineering majors might be able to relate to this, but in order to have a laptop that can handle having about 17 SolidWorks tabs open at once, it takes a pretty heavy laptop. So I'm all for minimizing the weight of my backpack. Being able to just have my iPad and not a whole bunch of notebooks was really a lifesaver for me. Having an iPad also encouraged me to take advantage of professors' posted notes. I don't really know why, but when I was taking notes on paper, I just never thought to look at the posted notes. A lot of my professors will have really detailed, really helpful notes on their website, and I just never took advantage of that until my notes were already on my iPad. So it's like, why don't I just take my professor's notes that are also on my iPad and use those as well? Another pro that I really liked is that I could have my notes open on my iPad while solving problems on paper in a notebook. This was nice because normally I would have my notes in one section of a notebook and then my scratch work in another section, so I'd have to constantly be flipping back and forth between a notebook, and that's just so annoying. Something that I used to do when all of my notes were in notebooks is go back to my dorm during the day if I finished my work early. I would do all of my planned assignments for the day and then have more time and have more assignments to do, but I wouldn't have those notes on hand with me or those assignments with me. But with my iPad, I always have all of my classwork with me. Another pro is that I didn't need to carry around colorful pens or highlighters. Obviously, iPad, just click a button and it's there. So that's not like a big deal, but I would definitely say that that's an added pro. This might be specific, but one of the biggest pros I found was something that really was obvious to me in my thermodynamics class. If you have taken thermo or a similar class, you know that there's a lot of big diagrams, connections, maps, webs. You're connecting a lot of stuff. And it was so easy with my iPad to just like make something smaller, to highlight portions of it and move it around and make sure everything fit on the page. Whereas my friends were taking their notes in their notebooks, they were erasing, they were falling behind, they couldn't get everything drawn out in time in the space provided. That was really convenient and definitely one of my favorite pros of using an iPad. My last pro is that an iPad fits on a tiny desk. I had a couple lectures in ridiculously small lecture halls where the tables were about this big, not big enough for a piece of paper. And my iPad was a little bit bigger than the table, but it fit so much better. So my friends were trying to balance like a laptop on one knee and their notebook falling off the edge of the table, and it was just so easy for me to just pull out my iPad and it fit on the table, no worries. Now for the cons. The first con is if the pen dies, you're kind of screwed. Luckily, pens don't take very long to charge, but if it dies, like you can't take notes. Maybe if you buy a cheap one, you could like have a second backup one on hand, but that's like kind of a hassle. With my knockoff brand pencil, it doesn't tell me the battery, so I was kind of just guessing, and I never guessed well, so it was always dying in calculus class, specifically calculus class, and that's just really inconvenient, and it kind of, you're kind of out of luck. You also can't have multiple notebooks open at the same time, and I know that there's that thing where you can have like multiple pages open on the screen, but like this is how big an iPad is. Like if you have multiple notebooks open, you can't really see anything. It's just easier to have two separate notebooks open. This next con is not something that I foresaw, But writing on an iPad is really loud, and my friends would always point it out, and it made me really like self-conscious of my writing, and I'd always feel like I'm being such a distraction. Everyone around me can hear me writing, and that was definitely not one of my favorite parts of using an iPad. On a similar note, most of my friends called me an iPad kid, like daily. I hope this next one isn't a problem that most people have, but for some reason, my school's engineering building is like a brick box with like no sunlight, and there aren't any outlets. I don't know why you would have an engineering building with no outlets. We kind of use our laptops a lot. That was just kind of hard because my iPad is probably not going to last through the full day if I'm using it in every class, using it for all of my homework. I don't want to charge it overnight, and so I always want to charge it during the day, and there just wasn't a place for me to charge it. I would spend time like searching for an outlet when I could have been spending that time studying or doing my assignments. Because I didn't want to carry my notebooks with me, and I also didn't want to have to do my assignments on my iPad while referencing my notes also on my iPad. I had one communal notebook and then notebooks for all of my classes, but I would carry around the communal notebook and I would do all of my work in that. And if I had one of my other notebooks, sometimes I just have random notes for other classes in that. So it made all of my work, all of my notes, if my iPad died, all of my scratch work, it's all just scattered throughout random notebooks, and it's like impossible to find. So that made studying really hard when I wanted to go back and see how to solve problems that I forgot how to solve, but I couldn't find the assignments anywhere. The reason I started using my iPad exclusively for notes was because I didn't feel like spending more money on notebooks. But I think I ended up spending the same amount of money that I would have spent on notebooks on new pen tips, replacement screen protectors, a new pen when my dog ate mine. If cost is one of the things that you're taking into account, then the replacements are going to be about the same as just buying notebooks. Okay, I don't know if everyone has this problem, but for me, one of the biggest cons was that I thought it was impossible to find things in my notes just by scrolling through. I don't know what it was about it, but if there was something specific I was looking for, I would be scrolling for so long trying to find where in my notes I wrote about it, and I just feel like it's a lot easier to locate things when it's written in a notebook and I was just flipping through. I don't know what it was, but for some reason, I just thought it was so much harder. The last con that I have is kind of because I'm a perfectionist, but having that thing where you like draw a circle and it like snaps to a circle, but sometimes it snaps to an oval because you're really bad at drawing circles and your lines snap to be straighter, that made it take so much longer for me to draw things because everything had to be perfect. It had to be a circle, it can't be an oval, it had to be a square, it couldn't be a rectangle. And because you can't really like sketch, it meant that all of my lines had to be perfect, and so it took me so long to draw anything. Whereas on paper, my paper drawings take me like 2 seconds and they look like not good, and I don't care. So if you're a little bit of a perfectionist, I would not recommend drawing your diagrams on your iPad because it will really just enable your perfectionism. That was a lot of pros, a lot of cons. I hope they were a little bit helpful for you. I've weighted all of them against each other, and this is my plan going into the spring semester. I'm going to use my iPad for notes in applied thermodynamics because, as I said earlier, being able to make things smaller and rearrange them is so important in a class like that, as opposed to people who have theirs cramped and then it's hard to read, it's not effective for studying, things are erased, you're missing things, you're falling behind. So I will definitely be using my iPad for in-class thermo notes. However, as I said, I'm out on campus for about 12 hours a day and I'm doing work for pretty much all 12 hours. The charge just does not last that long and there aren't any outlets. So I'm not planning on using my iPad for every class like I did last semester. Specifically, I want to use paper notes for my math classes. I think that will be good because it's much easier to find things flipping through a notebook. I feel like for math, those are the types of classes where you really need to flip back and find exactly what you're looking for. I also think that it's easier to read on paper notes for some reason. I think it's just so much easier to follow along a like handwritten on paper practice problem. For my other 3 classes, I'm probably gonna like play it by ear, and I might start out on iPad and see how I like it. But I'm definitely gonna use my notebooks for homework assignments and rewriting important notes. Those were all of my thoughts on using an iPad for one semester. I hope that was helpful for you, and if you have any additional pros and cons, please leave a comment. I would love to see what you guys think. Okay, bye.